Good day, and welcome to CrimsonSplat Sucks at Empyrion, Reforged Eden 2, Episode 5. Now, I decided that the details of foraging, resource gathering, and rebuilding the HV just were not all that interesting. So, to summarize really quickly, what I decided to do was remove the harvest attachment, put on a couple of mining drills, um, I modified the front so that the two cargo containers were modified into one, and also I added some more room for the harvester module. Uh, well, not the harvester, but the drills. So I've got more room for ore to go into the HV. Unfortunately, that caused issues with it becoming quickly overloaded, and I ended up having to spend a lot of time during this episode in dealing with that. So I basically have cut all of that out of this episode. Because frankly, it's boring. The HV scanner has about 2 to 3 times the range of the handheld scanner that I've been using up to this point, so it gives me a lot more idea of what's around me. Now, radar signatures tend to be uh, resource nodes underground. Heat signatures tend to be structures above ground. By the way, I hope you're finding the sound quality much improved on this episode. I finally managed to figure out Shotcut's audio capability. As I have said before, I'm learning as I go with all this. So, that allows me to boost the sound in the recording and also overlay the narration rather than trying to talk and play at the same time. As you've seen, I have enough trouble trying to keep a coherent thread of gaming and a coherent thread of narration going at the same time. Actually, I have a lot of trouble even keeping them going separately, but anyway, here we are. Speaking of sound quality, you hear that noise? Some spiders have snuck up underneath me and are attacking. After dealing with the spiders, I started to mine, and here you get some idea of the problems of this being a hybrid design. Uh, it's not really a dedicated miner, and as a result, it's not balanced properly, and it's got difficulty in maneuvering in tight quarters. So, in fact, several times I had to stop and get out in order to mine around the HV and try to um, smooth the slope and make it easier to maneuver, and also deal with the overhead. The gun, the turret on top of the HV is getting caught quite a lot. And that's not a good thing to have it on a miner. You just don't get into tight holes with a tall. Wait. Maybe we should rephrase that. Tight spaces with a tall miner ship. Whatever. And now we're finally into the iron ore. You'll notice that several times I turn and start mining around the sides, even though I'm not getting iron ore from it, and also cutting some holes in the ceiling. That's to help me get maneuvering room for the HV. If it weren't for the height of the gun on top, I wouldn't have to do this quite as much. But as it stands, I'm going to have to jump out again a couple times in order to fix issues with the top. See, there's the gun again.
12 seconds later.
Actually, it was more like 40.
What's that? Get your finger out of that bunghole!
Now you notice here that I've hung the drills on the tent. That is actually deliberate. The point being, I'm now getting back into the vehicle, starting up the power, and turning the thruster off. Because the ground is sloped, if I don't hang the drills on the tent, it will cause the HV to start sliding down the slope into the water, and I don't really want that. Now here you see biodiesel and concrete in the constructor. I'm building up a reserve of both, one for the base and the other to make sure that I keep my refrigerator running. The other thing I'm doing is expanding the harvester storage. This is actually a mistake, because what ends up happening is I end up overloading the HV, and now it needs even more repulsors. Well, I'm not going to add them because I have much more important things to do, such as building the base.
Three weeks later.
And finally, the expanded harvester storage and the armor I put around it, which of course just makes the whole problem with overloading worse. But hey, I've got the capacity now. Okay, it's time to start building the base. And this is where everything really starts going wrong. I basically did not prepare enough materials and resources. Plus, I have them at some distance from the hole where I'm going to start my base at. The result is that I end up having to run around and go get a whole bunch more resources, which takes time on the clock once I put the core down. That starts the clock to when the first attacks come. And by not being as prepared as I thought I was, I ended up really causing myself some headaches. And then, of course, the other issue was that I had the HV too overloaded to move with the resources that I have and pick up along the way. This really starts being a problem further along when I'm trying to place a bunch of concrete blocks and I can't carry them all. Now, at this point, I've made another mistake. Yes, I'm putting down the blocks, but I can't get myself out of this hole. So I have to keep building up the blocks and digging out until I can get myself out of here, go back to the HV, and gather more resources. See, right there is where I have the problem. So I'm starting to try to clear more room, put more blocks down, and dig my way up. Pointing finger way too much. Incidentally, the reason you see me doing an odd thing like pulling my gun out instead of changing the position of the ladder is that I use a numeric keypad, not the keyboard. This is, it's got its advantages and disadvantages, but one of the advantages is that I can set up three different presets, one for flying, one for fighting, and one for constructing. Sometimes, though, I'm not on the right preset, so instead of doing things like rotating the ladder into the correct position, I'll pull a weapon. There's three other problems here that impair my play. First off, being a boomer, I am of quite of age, and I have arthritis in both hands and one shoulder. As a result, my fingers are not as responsive as I wish they were. Another problem, and this is fed partly by the last one, is that using the keypad instead of the keyboard means I'm not using the WASD keys to move. Instead, I'm using the thumb rocker. And I can't always control it as well as I want because of the arthritis. That is really a major problem in World of Warships where I'll think I'm trying to steer and instead I'm cutting the engine back. The other issue that I have is nerve damage. The arthritis is fairly deep in my right shoulder, and I also have problems thanks to neck surgery that I had. So I can't even feel properly the last couple of fingers on my right hand, and I can't type with them worth a damn. Anything that involves the P, the semicolon, uh, the backslash, period, all those keys in that area, not necessarily going to hit the right ones. But, I deal with it. We paused this stream for a very important public service announcement. When pausing the game for a bio break, you do not want to keep your headset on because pausing the game does not pause your recording. Thank you. Well, gosh, why can't I move? Perhaps I'm stuck on the tent. No, that doesn't seem to be it. What could it possibly be? Short version, I had to spend the next few minutes running back and forth with a few concrete blocks at a time, throw them down, and then go back and get some more. Despite my best efforts at collecting resources ahead of time, I did not get enough put together to build out the above ground structure in time for the next attack. However, as you'll see when I get there, I cheesed a bit and got my weapons at least ready to fight. Although a lot of it is going to be clipped out, it's still over an hour before that happens. The entire time was taken up with constant trips to get more resources. In particular, I needed raw stone, copper, and wood. The copper and the wood for nitrocellulose was so I could make enough ammo to be ready, and of course the stone was so I could make concrete blocks. Now I decided at this point that I was going to take all these blocks down that were above the ground level. The concrete blocks would be used to form the base and then to go underground. Whereas, whoops, hello. Goodbye. The concrete blocks would be used to form the base and to go underground. When I say the base, I mean the foundation. The metal blocks that I had created and will make more of later will form the above ground structure. However, I'm forced to change my mind about that as an emergency measure later on, but you'll see that when we get there. About 15 long minutes of cargo moving later, I've decided that, okay, I need some copper because I need to be able to shoot the enemies when they get here, and it's going to be pretty soon at the rate things are going because it's taking me too long to complete the structure. So, I'm off. Well, I'm usually quite off, but I'm also leaving the area.
This prattle bores me.
Incidentally, radar signatures mean underground resources. Heat signatures mean above ground structures, which might be wreckage, or they might be enemy bases, or friendly bases, or neutral bases, or something else, but generally not a underground resource. Incidentally, I don't know why the devs decided that the drill could only be mounted facing forward. But if I ever meet one, he better, or she, let's not be sexist here, better have a damn good explanation for it. Because the most logical direction for a drill to point in these cases is down. Now, if you're trying to make a tunnel, sure, it makes sense to have the drill facing forward. But if you're trying to mine to a resource, you either need a digging shovel or a drill that faces downwards. Yeah, I know. Big mines, you have to have the drill facing forward. But how do you think they drill the central shaft? Okay, there's not much point in uh, continuing with like every minute of play here. I have a lot of time and trouble trying to get the mine shaft to work, and I have a whole lot more trying to realize that the reason I can't get it out at the end of this is that it's overloaded, and I spend a whole bunch of time fooling with that problem. So, without further ado, I mean further ado.
1 hour later.
Okay, I made some mistakes here. Shocking, I know. In short, after wasting all that time trying to get my resources together, I finally headed back to base and I started constructing more ammunition and blocks to build the base up with. Well, now I'm taking advantage of I guess you could say I'm cheesing again. You see, the attack on the base won't actually begin unless and until I set foot on it, not just near it. So at this point, I'm able to sit a few tens of meters away with my constructor built into the HV and construct all the items I need out of the resources that I've gathered. Well, that works, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to have to go back to the base and finish the construction, set the guns up, set up the ammo box, and so on. Well, because this is all taking so much time, I decided, there's no reason to keep recording through all this stuff. I'm just going to end up cutting it out anyway because it's boring. You can probably guess the next part. After all this build up, yes, I forgot to turn the recording back on for the first attack. So, I'll make sure I have it on for the second. Well, whatever.
You're kinda slow for a human, aren't you?
Smart ass. Okay, folks, hit the like and I'll see you next time.
Click me, baby, one more time.